what are the biggest mistakes companies are making integrating AI? What are the biggest mistakes? So who wants to start that off?
I can.
Let's hear it. Introduce yourself as we start this.
Yes. Hi. My name is Pinar Demirdag. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Cuerbic, the generative AI platform for creatives and filmmakers. My background is in creative technologies. I'm an artist who accidentally became a software developer. So I think I can answer this question. There are several apps out there. There are several AI apps out there. And what I realize is that one of the biggest mistakes we could have done, but thankfully we didn't, is that, you know, AI is like this shiny toy that's like available in GitHub and Hugging Face, like there are these models that are available. The biggest mistake when you work with AI would be to create a demo tool. I would like to make the difference between a creative tool developed by creatives for creatives versus a demo tool that's created by engineers for social media people to put some cool things out there. Oh, look, I could make something, which is great, you know, like for somebody that could never like artistically express herself by drawing. I can understand how it must be rewarding to be able to make something and flounce with that. But when we talk about professional film workflows or professional creative workflows, what a quick reward desires is not the same desire as a professional filmmaking desire. So in short, the biggest mistake I believe AI companies can make first is to implement models as they are without fine-tuning for their specific use cases. And the second is to make a demo tool versus a tool that true creatives are looking for.
Who else?
I kind of really just want to expand on that. I think this is treating AI as just a black box, right? So you kind of just throw something at it, and then whatever result comes back, you have absolutely no choice or control how to influence the results. And that is the biggest problem, you know, like that, you know, we as the creatives, we have a very specific idea to what we try to generate, what we try to create. And if we don't have any means of directing that thing, you know, whatever the AI tool is going to do in order to behave or give us the result that we want, then it's pretty much, you know, like useless to us. So I think finding a way to affect and communicate or change or influence the results is really the number one challenge we have at the moment.
I'll just add on that real quick. I definitely agree with that. The other thing I'm noticing is, I mean, and maybe people are getting better, but is not to include active creative professionals in the development stage of your product. So you're just kind of doing these kind of isolated, it's engineers and researchers working in a black box, and they don't really know who they're creating for and what. And you kind of alluded to that. And so I think as soon as you can kind of bring in people that are already using previous solutions into these new solutions, you're going to find that the product's going to be a lot more functional. And you're doing that too. The other thing is not, certain things don't need to be reinvented in terms of language, user interaction. There are decades of animation, VFX, editing tools that we all speak that language already. And some of the AI companies are coming in and they're not really referencing any of that stuff. And so it feels like toys a lot of the time. And you're like, they already did all the work. Adobe did all this work. Like all these Nuke, all these companies did work to create a functional interface. And you don't have to copy it, but you can reference that language that we're already used to speaking in post-production.
Excellent. So next question what are your thoughts on companies using copyrighted material to train their models? Austin.
So I think that, you know, companies using copyrighted materials is going to be a really big question. But I think it's kind of a double-edged sword in some ways, because what we all want is the models to get better, right? We want the technology to develop. We want to share it across each other. And so that's really hard. But on the other hand, we want to be able to use our work that we've put our money into, our investment. We want that to come back to us and be able to build. So I think it's a little bit of a double-edged sword. I think companies need to be extremely transparent, and I think they need to work harder on gathering the material ethically and just asking people. And I think we as a community can start to opt into that and learn that just because I'm opting into model training isn't hurting me. It's actually going to benefit me in the long run, but don't just take it without me asking.
Yeah, I'll add on that. I think, look, the models already exist. So the foundation has already been laid. We can't really undo that at this point. But what we can do going forward is start to create assets and train on custom assets for your models, and you can refine and fine tune your models and pay people for their material. So commission work to create better models that can separate you from other companies.
We solved that problem at our company by using synthetic data. So basically we had the problem. We had to basically train a model to do color grading and how you're going to present model with 1,000 wrong color grades. So we literally had to just create this data. So we used at the beginning a lot of Unreal Engine, and now we're big on Midjourney. So basically that's a really great source for us to, create a really good training data.
And I think my perspective is very similar to what was spoken there, but I want to reiterate the transparency of how data is being trained is the key. And all of us have the opportunity then to opt in or opt out. And I actually think one of the options, and I'm not always a big fan of standards. I kind of am a fence walker in standards. I like some, but not too many. But what I think is going to have to emerge is a way in which, as consumers, we can decide easily through a badge or some sort of way to identify what is the technique that these models use. Because you can't always talk to the actual manufacturers. But if there was a way to indicate how it was trained, then you could decide, say, as a company, we only use a certain class of model. And other individuals might say, I don't really mind how it's created. And that could be something that helps govern this in a very easy way for people to decide how to work. So we'll see how that materializes, but it's good. So here's an interesting one. Can you describe the difference between generative AI and utility AI? And that's actually a theory that I've been pushing a lot because I actually think that generative AI is way overrated. And there are some people that think there isn't actually enough data of visuals on the internet. There's not even enough pictures on the internet to accurately train generative AI to look real enough for actual motion in long form. We don't even have enough footage yet to do that. Think about that. That's not my theory, but I've heard that several times. But the point is, utilitarian AI is where I think we're going to be able to see the most development because it's celebrating the mundane. If you've been at NAB for a couple of years or 40 years, you know that a lot of what we discover here is how to do tasks that are boring and they happen in a back room where you can't hear or it's too cold. And those are the types of opportunities that we can use AI to do the laborious tasks so that we can focus on the creative ones faster. I use an analogy. Everybody likes the idea of painting a room in your house. You get excited. You talk to your significant other. We're going to paint a room. Then when you remember you have to tape all the edges and put drop cloths, you talk yourself out of it. I think we'll leave it as it is. That's what the laborious tasks of workflow are. It's taping the room when you really just want to get to the painting of it. You don't want to clean brushes. You don't want to get out drop cloths. You just want to get to the good stuff. All creative people are like that. And so if we can use AI to tape the room for us, to just get to the painting, that's the stuff that I really want to get into. Next question. How can creatives like writers, actors, and directors participate in the development of AI and play a more active role in still creating their own art? How can creators like writers and actors, directors participate in the development and still play an active part in creating their own stories?
Actually, can I answer the last question?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Utilitarian, I think about that a lot actually, because, generative AI is this shiny new jewel that's it was metaverse now, shiny jewel, and next year it will be quantum computing and photon, free energy. We're in the generative AI phase of the cool. the hype. But actually, by focusing on generative AI, we're missing a lot of utilitarian AI. For example, our tool, Cuerbic, of course, I'm going to talk about it because that's all I know. But, like, for example, like, it's created for you to streamline the production of 2.5D environments for virtual production and ideation production. There's no tool in the world that there's no human in the world that can look at a flat image and tell you the exact meter distance between a house and a mountain. But AI can do that. Our tool can do that. And like, for example, something, as you said, laborious, boring, like rotoscoping. Like we have automatic object-based and depth-based rotoscoping. Like if rotoscoping were to disappear from the face of Earth, nobody would miss it. I mean, I know. And it's actually such a, like, we're all about as a society and as a culture, oh, this new thing that we have never been done before. Here is my group of clients. No, I don't care. Let me get more clients. But how about optimizing the creative workflow out of the 80% is laborious? There are so many AIs that by being so bedazzled by generative AI that we are missing that are actually helping us optimize our creative workflows.
I got ahead of myself. Anyone else want to take that one? Dado.
No, I wanted to go back to the question how people like actors, directors can participate, because I think that's a very, very interesting one, important one, because I believe everybody here would somehow, like to understand, how is it that I can, get involved? And I did a little experiment, where basically I organized a training course where I just, taught people, group of 200 students online how to manipulate Midjourney and then animate those shots and how to use a few other tools. And basically the amount of variety of results and things I got out of it was just absolutely insane. I mean, and then we ended up producing like fictional commercials that were completely, generated using, these techniques of animating stills images. And I think there is no better way to, get involved, but just really start using it with some, destination in mind. You don't just play with it. You just say, okay, how about we go and we make something? And in process of doing that, you're not just exploring yourself, but you're also helping everyone else understand what's possible and in which direction to go. I think there is nothing better to do than just to play with it.
Can you restate the question one more time? So it's how do actors, writers, directors participate in the development or
while creating
development of the tools?
Yeah, still making it their own.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of what I struggle with every week. So I think it's really important to not lose your voice in the process. One of my kind of critiques of AI is, the homogenization of, aesthetics and ideas and eventually culture. And I worry we're barreling towards some sort of monoculture, mono-aesthetic that AI is providing. And so it's really important to still make things traditionally. So maybe that's not the right answer, but I still enjoy shooting, with people and being on set and discovering things in the real world. And so don't, just because the AI stuff is a really amazing way to ideate, I wouldn't, don't keep that as your only part of the creative process. Get out there in the real world and discover new ideas, because these training sets are limited, as you noted, and you're not going to find your voice. There's two sides to that, in that, like, I've been able to try and fail and try and succeed a lot faster with AI, and I've been able to discover things about like what I like and maybe what my voice is through AI sooner. In the last 2.5 years playing with this stuff, I've discovered types of work that I wouldn't have discovered before that I like. But you can easily get sucked into that bubble of AI, and I think it's really important to really hone your voice and your vision outside of the training data.
There's a great one from Rodrigo. Rodrigo asks, with the exponential advancement in processing power, do you believe that in 5 years there'll be something in this area that AI won't be able to match in human capability?
I'll take that one. I think the short answer is no. Like, the computers are phenomenal, and they will blow your mind what they can do. But I think the essence of maybe the question is not, can the computer do it? Like, there's an actual joy in the act of creating, right? There's an art form. You're speaking with emotion. It isn't just like the physical pixels, right? Like, can you color it, right? It's, can you spark an emotion in the story that you're telling and that you want people to feel? And that AI can't do, because you can take control over the creative process, right? And ownership over what you want to do. And I think that's where, yes, computers will be able to do a lot, but I think they will really struggle to tell cohesive stories. And like, you don't know, it's complicated to make a media element that's, that contains all the story elements and visually appealing and all that. And when it be able to tie it together cohesively, I think that comes from humans.
Working? Yeah. Okay. I would like to invite all of us to come back to the basics of what AI is. Data set, algorithm, and outcome. I just explained you that a fork is made out of steel. I would like us to really stop being fascinated by computation and technology and invite us to start being fascinated by humans that invented it, are making amazing things with it, and truly changing the lives of other people with it. Just because the computation numbers come at a higher place where we ourselves cannot understand, I would like us to refrain from getting into Hollywood scenarios that machines will replace humans or will be better than humans. With questions as such, I always think about the early days of invention of a car. I'm pretty sure that somebody tried to run faster than the car, and the car went faster, and they said, humans are shit, cars are amazing. This question really goes there. This question is basically like, the fear behind that question is like, just tell me when I will be useless. Just tell me when I will be annihilated. No, I believe I'm team human. I'm team human because humans can bear miracles and machines cannot. Humans, just like a Skywalker or Godfather, like when something of a very hardship comes into your life, you immediately pivot your life and your lifestyle, and you're like, okay, I'm powerful now. No machine can act outside of their data sets. If you don't believe me, ask ChatGPT. You can, I swear, they can be sort of like falsely, synthetically created within their data set, but only humans can bear miracles.
And the answer to that question is actually, it's in the question itself. The exponential function certainly has a great growth, but if we look at the differentiation, we also have to understand that exponential function never can be zero. So that means if we look at the difference between a humans and machine, that is never going to become a zero. It's impossible. And as good as the machines get, the better we are also getting. You have to understand we are also not static. Humans are evolving constantly. And, you might have been excited about Midjourney a few months ago, but today you look at that image and think like, it's not really working for me. And, so our tastes and our abilities are developing. These machines are actually helping us develop our own abilities and our own tastes, our own standards. And I don't think we'll ever going to be able to merge. It's impossible. The exponential function doesn't allow it.
And I would add to that, it's not just that, it's also tastes. Our tastes saved. AI can't create something that is already in existence. And so as fashion and music changes, that's the creative process, moving things from fad to trend to standard, right? Very good. Great question, Rodrigo. Okay, Zach asks, what can small production teams anticipate in the next 2 to 3 years to be automated? What are your predictions? 2 to 3 years, small production teams.
I hope there's less, hopefully there's a lot more going back to the less generative stuff and the more, I guess, technical stuff is automating a lot of painful points in pre-production. Organizational stuff, going from script to budget to to breaking down your days. So hopefully, and when you have a limited producing staff, I think a lot of these pre-production tools that are not quite in existence yet could really help. I feel like there is a little bit of a niche there that could really help the small production companies. Big production companies have millions of staff, and then pre-production's a breeze. But if you're a small production company, if you're doing multiple commercials and music videos or whatever, and you only have so many producers, it could be something gives. And hopefully there's ways for getting bits through budgets, all that. I also think, just being able to go from storyboard to, like animatic, hopefully that process can be a lot faster. And animatics are very expensive, and God bless the people that do them, but not every small production company can afford a fancy animatic. Like literally commercial or like, ad agencies will spend like, $75K or $100K on an animatic. And that's not the luxury that everyone has. And so, and animatics are great for proofs of concept. So I'm really excited about the pre-production phase.
I'm not sure if it's a direct answer to the question, but it gives me an opportunity to talk about the fact that right now, like, you push a button and it generates a video and it's like, wow, crazy, it's great. But I think, like, we're missing something, which is like, these videos generate background and foreground in the same time, but I don't think the directors are looking for everything to come out. Like, meaning like, I think in the next years, we will see a very clear division between foreground and background. And what really excites me is the small production budget's capability to control something that is generated. Meaning, like, okay, you push a button and it generates and it has a life on its own, but is it camera trackable? If the actor moves right and if the world on its own moves everywhere, what are you going to do? You can't control it. What really excites me is your capacity to either generate a flat image, outpainted, and nerf it, whatever you want to do it, but sort of cloud, what is it called again? Anyways, I forgot the technical name. But your capacity to just like draw a sketch and turn it into a French Renaissance 360 with depth and occlusion maps, so then you can be inside your doodle sketch that just turned into Marie Antoinette's home.
Yeah, what I wanted to say was, I think in the next 2 to 3 years, we're going to see the democratization across the globe. I think it's really a global improvement to what small teams are going to be able to do. When I actually moved to LA to get into this, it was like, you have to move to LA. Like, where else are you going to go, right? And I actually think we're going to be able to see people create outside of LA, because you don't have to spend 10 years learning how to do some stuff in MOOC because you have these tools. So I think a lot of small teams in the next 2 to 3 years are going to get these capabilities that took many teams, many years of processes and workflows that built up, and they're going to start to be able to utilize them through the advances in AI.
I want to just add to it that I think that actually we're going to see exponential growth of small teams of one. I mean, there's going to be only one person that's going to have capacity to generate incredible amount of content. So actually, I don't know if small teams themselves are going to be necessary at all. Like, you're going to have a bigger teams, we're going to work on bigger stuff, but all the small stuff that you need a team right now, you'll be able to do it just by yourself.
Well, the point you're actually making, if we extrapolate that going backwards, teams continue for the last 25 years to get smaller and do the work of larger teams. That's a consistent change. But the idea of it getting eventually down to one is different. That's what's new. It's like, how much can that scale down and yet still maintain a certain layer? We all know what a team of one is capable today versus a year ago versus 10 years ago. But 10 years from now, a team of one is going to be hard to determine from a team of maybe 100. That's really special. Great questions.
Can I add? Oh, I wanted to add one more thing that just came to my mind before we move on. I actually think in the next 2 to 3 years, another thing we're going to really see is the dailies process, that your dailies are just going to get so much better, right? Your audio is going to be cleaned up. You're going to have them colored. You're going to have shots picked out for you. You're going to have circles marked. And that's one of the things that small teams really don't have today. They don't have the luxury of sending it to a post house, right? And having their dailies made for them. Like your audio is going to be sunk, whether or not your time code matches, right? Like all those things are going to be utility so that as a creative, as a small team, you're editing footage that's nice, right? And I think the dailies process is really ripe for improvement.
CCS, great question here. For people that feel threatened by AI, what would you say are the best baby steps to introduce the current AI tools?
I mean, just go out and play. I mean, there's so many. Is it a question about what tools to play with?
Maybe you could take it to that, but if they're threatened,
I mean, I encourage people that are scared of anything to walk towards what they're scared of. I always put myself in really uncomfortable situations, and I grow stronger out of it. So I won't get into recommending tools, but yeah, the more you're scared of something, the more you should learn about it. I think the less you learn about something, the more scared you're going to be, and yeah, the more I play with this stuff, the less I'm scared of it, because I also realize like where does the computer stop and where do I need to like really do the heavy lifting to create something that stands out here. So yeah.
I have a funny story. By the way, point cloud is the technical term. I forgot. Sorry. The funny story, it happened to me about the question, by the way. It's not just a random story. 2017, I received an email from Google Arts and Culture and Google Brain in Zurich saying that we accidentally invented making art with AI. We're not an art company, but you need to come here because whatever we're doing looks like your body of work as an artist. They didn't use my art in training data, none of that. They were it was one of the first iterations of humanity's capacity to create art with AIs as a derivation of Deep Tree model by Alexander Morvintsev. And it was looking like what I'm doing in my life as an artist. So they showed me the model and I was literally like, you upload a picture, you push some buttons, pull some sliders, and the outcome was my art. I swear to God, it was so similar to my art. If there were to be anybody in this world to be afraid of AI, that was me. You know, like I spend like a week, a year, a month to make some art. And here I am in front of that algorithm. I push a button and I'm like, it looks like what I'm doing. But instead of being frozen and doing nothing and shivering, I'm like, okay, you know what? I'm going to co-found a production company with AI and I'm going to make the world's first visual effects for a future film. And then it turned into a software. Like when we are afraid of anything, be it AI, be it our neighbor, be it celebrities, be it other nations, we become frozen. I'm also not going to go into telling tools. There are like, it's just a Google search. But for anybody that's afraid of anything, it's actually the first barrier in our greatest version of ourselves.
That's really well said. And what my answer to anything that's threatening about AI is actually pretty simple. And it's actually hopefully pretty helpful. I used to own a post-production company called Light Iron, and we were really good at early forms of 4K file-based workflows. And what we used to say is the interesting thing about post-production is even when you're good at it, it doesn't really get any easier. Isn't that interesting about what we do for a living? Think about someone who can do brain surgery. They do it so often, so many times. Something as delicate as brain surgery, they can sit there and do it and have conversations about Subway sandwiches, right? Or orders. Because as they do it more and more, it gets easier and easier. That's not how creativity works. That's how post-production works. So the idea that even though you get good at it, it remains hard, that's good for us because it's not going to just get easier. Parts of it will get automated and simpler, but the actual results that we want, never. It's going to be very complicated. And that means we have a purpose in finding out what we want to do. Derso asks a great question here. This is really interesting, Derso. How can we incorporate log and ACES workflows with AI tools available today? And I'll kick this off just by saying, actually, Pinar said something about this earlier. It had to do with engineers versus creatives. Paul mentioned this too. If you're talking about log and ACES, you're talking about acronyms and abbreviations that most, if not all, of the AI engineer community aren't really familiar with. These are very common words to us. Everybody knows what those mean today. So How do we think we work that into the story? What's your thought? Dado, you are actually starting to do that right now with your AI.
Yeah, we already did it. Yeah. But we had to, I couldn't have solved it myself. So we worked with one of the most, like a recognized color scientist in Hollywood, Josh Pine, who has come on board of our company as an advisor exactly for that purpose. And, we just, managed to integrate, through a middleware. We couldn't directly integrate ACES into the AI model. But he has built us, a new log encoding system called JPlog2, which is, named by his name, which actually is bigger and more powerful than ACES, so that we can actually pack ACES inside our AI model so that we can actually be independent. We also wanted to have something that's going to last another few years, because think about it, the training of a model takes a lot of time and money and power and so on. So we really felt like if we're going to just do something now, we want to have more capacity, more detail, more dynamic range than what we have from ACES right now. So we literally build a new encoding system where ACES can live inside. So our model is trained on that, and that allows us that precision that we were missing at the beginning in order to get the high quality color matching results.
Anyone else on that? Good. It's really good, because what it boils down to is Dado is a subject matter expert in color science. His AI technology is color correction, which is very much left brain, right brain, right? Good colorists know a lot about the science behind it. And it's applying people like Josh Pines into this art to actually modify it and make it custom built for AI. Or otherwise, most of the AI models that do anything with video image manipulation don't understand log, or they do it wrong, or they limit you to about 2 megabits per second, which is unacceptable. So what's the point, right? Outside of TikTok. So that's a really good point. High fidelity matters to us. And AI and high fidelity today are kind of at odds with each other. That's right for innovation. You're a manufacturer engineer and you want to help solve fidelity in AI. Lots of green pasture there. Green pasture there. Okay, here we go. Z. Very good question, Z. This is good. Where do you see AI job creation in post-production mitigate the anticipated job destruction in the existing workflow pipeline?
I mean, I think there's still going to be a lot of carry through in terms of map painters will now use AI to map paint and compositate. But I think there's still room for things like using AI to do kind of 3D reconstructions of your environments, using AI to train on the footage that you shot and then create custom models per scene, so that you can generate additional assets for that scene if you don't want to do a pickup shot or something. So hopefully there's training there. There's map painting, relighting. I think we'll start to get better. And this doesn't really exist, but it's a fantasy is relensing. It's to use depth maps to relens a shot that's already baked in. And so there's some things that AI is going to open up that we are going to be able to manipulate our footage in ways we only wish we could have before. And so yeah, so things that we can't even really dream of. So full manipulation, if you're like, oh, the light needs to be here, you have a relighting expert, or you're like, oh, we want to do a post zoom, but instead of just a simple 2D zoom, you can actually do a slight 3D zoom, and then also maybe change the angle on it slightly as well. So some options there. Yeah.
No, I mean, this is still the same person doing the same job, doing it slightly differently. No, I have a practical, an analysis, that we made. We had our application out in the field for about 4 years, but maybe 2 years that it was really used by thousands of people, where we can see what happened. And, first colorists were worried, are they going to take my jobs away? So nobody lost their job. Nobody lost their job. Not one person has lost their job because they started implementing AI in their facility. But what has happened is that many people who were never even considering learning color grading have become kind of recreational colorists, right? So they basically are said, well, you know what? I, in the past, used to just edit and send the stuff out. Now I can actually do a little color grade because the AI does it for me, and it took me 2 weeks to learn how to do it. And that's where the jobs are created. This means that basically, instead of you having to look for work as a colorist at the post facility, you might choose to work for some creator, or you might become creator yourself, or you might just find that there is other jobs and opportunities that are not necessarily part of the traditional film production, post-production world. The content creation is exploding, and AI is just going to increase that speed. And there's going to be so much work to create content, right? And you just find yourself happy in one of those domains of creation, and that's your job. That's where you are.
I want to do we're at time now, so I want to do the last question here. And when everybody in Austin, you start us off. Okay. We're going to do the last question here. Eddie, this is really cool. I like this one, Eddie. If I have an idea for an AI tool, where do I begin as far as being able to build it? It's a really good conclusion.
Yeah, well, I guess I'm a decent person to answer that because, 7, 8 years ago is when I trained my first model. So I've been training models, building models for a while now, starting in academia, in that space. I think, what's awesome is training an AI model isn't that difficult. It's really not. If you are an engineer, I would say, I'm going to answer this from the engineering perspective, but just start researching. AWS has a bunch of great stuff with SageMaker that I've been really impressed with to get started. The Hugging Face community is awesome to just see what's out there and see like the nuance and the depth of the models that people are making. Just search GitHub. It's just open your eyes and look, and the actual code, it's not all that difficult. Once you learn about how to label data, how to get it into an ETL pipeline in order to start training the model, that stuff comes. That's the more technical side of it. But, if you just dive in, and look at some online courses, that's where I would start. There's some great online courses.
I would say trust your creative power first and foremost, because one person's capacity is not the same as others. Of course, you gave all the technical instructions, but what I would pile on is that, like, for example, already a visual effects supervisor took our tool and made a new plugin. It's like, oh, great, can we use it? So because he has a bit of an engineering background and he understands. But that to marry with the question before, I don't ever want to focus on people that will be losing their jobs, because that puts the attention on the negative. With what you will be learning and you will be transforming, I would like to focus on the people that will be getting more jobs and attention in the future, are those that will be able to think creatively, think out of the box, and critical think. Like being able to, what AI is not very good at is to marry really wildly different concepts together. So if ever, instead of being a cook, if you can learn to be a chef, to direct several AIs, to identify the repetitive parts and boring parts of your workflow, and just search in GitHub or Hugging Face in how to optimize that shitty part that I really hate so much, then, you're in the flow of AI.
Yeah, if you're seriously considering this, just look at maybe how, flooded the market is right now, and make sure that whatever your idea is, that it is something very unique, and that there's a gap there to be filled, because a lot of people are kind of competing to do the same thing. I think Pinar found a good kind of niche gap that now there's not really anyone that's competing with you. So just be really specific with what your idea is. And if it's not something that a whole business is built around, do the research to make a kind of working prototype. And I can tell you that the AI companies out there are hungry for developers right now. So make a working prototype. If it's something that could be added to an existing, suite like Runway or whatever it is, those companies are very hungry. So get a working prototype. It's easier to code now with ChatGPT, and then just kind of target that. If it's something you think that could be a product that could be bigger than just an add-on to another company. Just really make sure you do your due diligence to make sure there's not overlap.
I mean, if you want to build any AI tool, you're going to have to code. I had that problem as well. Like I had to go back to coding that I learned when I was kind of, at school at 16 or whatever, and then stopped. But, I have to tell you, I don't really code anymore, and I write more code than ever before because I use ChatGPT for everything. And it's just like, if I would be you, I would just ask ChatGPT, hey, how could I build this tool? And you're gonna get, if you're afraid for your jobs in post-production, you have to ask software developers how they feel about AI, because it's incredible what AI or what large language models can do when it comes to code creation. It's absolutely incredible. You really don't have to be like a 10 years experienced coder anymore to write these models. It's just really incredible how much you can get out of that ChatGPT alone.
Well, let's thank our panelists of experts here. So thank you so much.